If you are new here, my name is Sarah Wild. I'm a board certified registered nurse anesthetist, and I will be talking all things student registered nurse anesthetist lifestyle. In today's episode, we will be talking about a typical week of clinicals and classroom work as an SRNA, tips for organizing your schedule, the reality of making time for your family, friends, and relationships, your social life, and how that's going to shift. And that's okay. The presence and reality of having a minimal self-care, and then dealing with the guilt of not having time for it all. For those of you that are still looking into anesthesia school, you're not quite there yet, there is no room for flexibility. You are in the program or you're not. Once you're in, you're committed to their schedule. Unless someone dies, there's not much getting out of your actual schedule. A family member decided to get married, but it just wasn't going to work for my clinical schedule. And I had to miss that. And it was a big deal. It was really hard for some of our family. It caused some family drama. But at the end of the day, I had made it a commitment to getting through anesthesia school, and that's what I was going to do. More than likely, you will probably face a scenario like that. And I encourage you to prepare yourself now. Are you willing to say no and really dig in and focus on anesthesia school? I'll never forget my interview for getting into anesthesia school. That is a whole topic for another day. There is so much to talk about when you go to interview for anesthesia school. But I'll never forget one of the questions they asked me was, what do you do for self care? What do you do to cope? What is your coping mechanisms? And I think they were trying to decide, is she a drunk? Does she drink too much? Does she have healthy coping mechanisms? And it was funny, that was a question I did not prepare for. But the reality was, I think I told them, honestly, I probably take a bath with a glass of wine and watch a show or read a book or something like that. Later, I realized why they asked those questions, because anesthesia school is very stressful. You will have many moments where you are just pushed physically, mentally, emotionally. At the end of the day, you have to find a way to cope with that stress in a short period of time in an appropriate manner. I also love to work out in anesthesia school, but like my workouts were 30 minutes max. I didn't have the time to go get through a nice elongated workout. Now, I probably could if I made that more important on my list, but me being me, I knew I wanted to spend more time reading. So someone that maybe had a little higher retention than myself probably could have done that. Or I probably could have found a way to listen to an audiobook while I worked out. But the reality at that time, what worked best for me didn't allow me to work out more than 30 minutes. So, we're going to talk about what a typical week for an SRNA looks like. And I will admit, every program will be a little different, but across the board, it's pretty similar. You're either going to be in a front loaded program or an integrated program. The difference is a front loaded program, you're going to do a majority or a large portion of your didactic learning before you get into the clinicals and do hands on. An integrated program will start you in your clinicals pretty early in the program to get you the skills as you learn things. There's arguments for both. I'm not going to get into that, but knowing what a day looks like for both is important. If you are front loaded, then it's going to be a lot of studying, a lot of reading, comprehension, reviewing. So for me, it was a lot of I go to class, I go to the library, I read whatever topics we're going over. And of course, you highlight just about everything. And then I would go and I would review, what of this do I not know very well? And then I would write it out. And then after I'd write it out, I would look at this and say, how much of this do I really know? And that I didn't know, I would use my notes and I would teach it to a wall. And after I taught it to the wall, then I would set it down and then I would talk to it as a friend, be like, did you know about whatever your topic you're learning about? And I would just like, chat about it. Did you know this? And did you know this? And when you fall and you do this, and this is the clotting cascade. And when you fall and you cut your leg, and then you just chat about it. So that was my methodology. But essentially, while you're in the didactic portion, everything you eat, breathe, it's all going to be about studying, because You will have high level tests on a lot of information and you are in it all day long. Once you get to clinicals, it's going to be a little different because you have to balance now classroom work and clinical practice. It is so intimidating going into the OR knowing nothing about intubating except for what you read in textbooks. And they say, here's a blade, I want to see you try. And you're like, what? That is so intimidating. The reality is, when you first start clinicals, you are going to be stressed. I literally got a stomach ulcer at one of my rotations because the stress of what is to come. But the key is learning to balance both of those and make sure you're prioritizing time for your clinicals and didactic. Okay, so I've already gone over how this seems like a lot of time spent and you're stressed out and you've got very little time for personal life. Guess what? You still have family and you still have friends. So, what do you do with that? How do you make them feel like they're loved? Or how do you handle marriage or relationships or dating or best friends? This is what I would suggest. Before you even start your program, have an honest relationship with your spouse, with your parents, with your siblings, with your friends, whoever it is that you spend a lot of time with, and make sure everyone is on board with you going to that program because the people that do not succeed never have good support systems. You have to have a good support system to get through anesthesia school. So that's step one. Make sure your spouse is on board. Step two, create realistic parameters and make sure they know upfront. So, for my spouse, when I first started, when I was like probably the first year, I got up before him and I went to bed after him studying. So, when he woke up, I was in the office studying. He would bring me a cup of coffee and he'd give me a kiss, say hi, and then I keep studying. Very rarely did I see him for lunch. Often I packed a lunch and I was in the library. A lot of times I would come home for dinner because he was so gracious and kind and he cooked the whole time I was in anesthesia school. And then I would go to our office and I would study and he would come in and give me a kiss goodnight. There was no watching of shows together. There was no going and playing pickleball every night or tennis or whatever it was that we did before. And then on the weekend, once on the weekend, he got a 3-hour stint where we would go on a date, whether it was dinner or we go to the beach or we go on a motorcycle ride. We love riding motorcycles. And we would just take time and we would spend it. And that was such a valuable time together because his expectations, he knew what to expect. I knew what to expect. And we really spent that time together. Now, for you, I would suggest whoever it is that you need to set those expectations with, do that. If it's your friends, say, hey, realistically, guys, I can give you one time a month to spend time with you. Tell your parents, I can't get together with you weekly anymore. We can have lunch on Sundays once a month. Maybe you can do once a week. Whatever you're capable of handling, set those expectations though. Be very clear up front. That way you have no guilt. When you're able to communicate up front, it's just creating more support for you to do better. When you are a stronger unit with more support, you're going to have less guilt. You're just going to feel better mentally going through this whole program rather than having just that nagging, like, I know they're mad at me, but I can't handle it. So communicate really well with those around you. Okay, tips for organizing your schedule. So I would say majority of CRNAs, SRNAs were probably like closer to the type A personalities. I would say I'm like a low key, maybe type A. I love to be organized and stuff, but I'm pretty chill. I go with the flow. My area is not always perfectly pristine. And then there's like a handful of type Bs that we call the cowboys or whatever. So I would say majority of us love a good schedule. I'm a big schedule girl, so I'm going to share with you guys my tips for having a very organized schedule. If you're more of that cowboy type B, go with the flow. I'm super smart, graphic memory. Good for you. We're all jealous. So I am a hard planner. I love me a good hard planner, especially in anesthesia school. I had a planner that I would look at every single day. And then every time I go to class, I'd make a list of everything I needed to read and everything I needed to know for that test. When I got home, I would break down my whole day and I would account for every single hour in whichever topic I was studying. And I was color coordinated. I loved This topic was red, this topic was green, and I very much was very organized and I stuck to that time schedule. I gave each subject an equal amount of time, regardless if I got through everything. Because you don't want to make spend all of your time on this and then you realize, shoot, I've spent the whole day on this one topic and I still have two other subjects I have to study for. And then as you do that, you'll get better at like really realizing how you're spending your time and how to be more efficient. So I'd have my planner, I delegate time for each thing. And then I would say, as you get into it a month or two, you can even hone in and really determine how you are efficient, whether you only read for an hour, but then you write everything out and then you teach it to yourself, or you read for 3 hours and you don't teach it all because that's not how you learn, or you write everything out, but give yourself that designated time slots for every single thing. And then realize you need to turn it off at a certain point. You have to get sleep. Make yourself go to bed at a decent time and make yourself get up early. There's so much science behind the importance of a good sleep hygiene, and I'm not going to get into that, but it is important to get to bed at a decent time, wind your body down, get your body ready for sleep, sleep good, turn off that phone, go to sleep, get up and get after it. Some people like to do cold showers in the morning. Some people like to do a hard workout before they go. I was like, get up, do my quick hygiene routine, get going and studying. And then if I needed a mid-morning break, maybe I'd go on a walk or maybe I'd do a quick workout. But get yourself a very good schedule of what your day is going to look like day in, day out. And then once you start clinicals, work in that study routine. And then also make notes of, hey, I'm really struggling with this one topic. Write out a bunch of 3x5 cards and bring those with you to clinicals for when you have a lunch break. Don't waste any time. Always have those 3x5 cards. I'm telling you guys, anywhere I went, I had a purse full of 3x5 cards because there was just some facts you had to know. They're just little things that you will always get asked on in tests. And it's like you just wanted to be able to fire those facts off. Let's talk about your social life, or should I say lack thereof. Again, going back to making time for family and friends, you really have to limit the amount of time you give to those things. But when you do have the opportunity and when it is right for your schedule, do it. At the end of the semester, a lot of me and my classmates, we would go out for a really nice dinner and hang out after. And it was like, that was our night to celebrate. We celebrated our successes. I think that was really important. Some people were like, no, we don't want to go. I encourage go celebrate with your classmates. That's a big deal. When you do have any time off, I think we would get like maybe a long weekend or like a short week break in between semesters. Take that time. You don't have to go on an extravagant vacation, but relax, put things away, really focus on spending time with your loved ones and your friends and recoup. Last but not least, dealing with the guilt of not doing it all. I think this one comes a little more natural for me because I'm just naturally cold hearted. You're going to have to deal with the fact that you're just not going to be able to do it all. And that's okay. I knew I wasn't going to be in the best shape of my life when I was in anesthesia school. I still tried to be healthy and move and get exercise in, but I knew I wasn't going to get a six pack. I also knew that I wasn't going to be able to spend as much time with my friends playing tennis and doing whatever they were doing. And that was a bummer. Like you have FOMO. But at the end of the day, I had a goal and I was determined to do what it took. And what it took was to put all that aside, focus in, and get it done. And the reality is, guys, you're going to have some point in anesthesia school that is just hard, that you're just discouraged or you're sad or you're depressed. I think the only time in my life that I could say I was clinically depressed is when I was in anesthesia school, is when I was just at a really hard rotation that was very negative, and the CRNAs enjoyed hazing the SRNAs and making us just feel inferior. And it wore on me and it wore on me. And I got to the point where I told my husband I would be fine quitting. I wouldn't even be bummed. And my husband said that's when he knew I was at my lowest point, because never in my life have I ever been okay with quitting anything, like ever. And I was low. My husband's probably seen me cry 5 times in our life. And we were out to dinner once and I just lost it, ugly crying, snot coming out, tears rolling. I was to the point of exhaustion mentally, physically. I like when you cry and you're like hiccuping, I couldn't contain it because I just let it out and it wouldn't stop. I just couldn't hold it together anymore. At that point, I had no strength left to navigate the stress. I had a stomach ulcer. I just couldn't think. I couldn't function. But I had that support system. I had my husband who said, come on, let's go home. We're going to get you some sleep. And I'm going to help you get up tomorrow and we're going to rehearse. I'm going to ask you questions and you're going to teach me. It was because of that support system that I went home. I took a bath, I think. I went to bed and I woke up the next day and I said, my goal for today is to succeed in my small tasks. And that's what I did. And I went one day at a time. Here I am now, 5 years into my anesthesia career. I am so thankful for the opportunities that being a CRNA has afforded me. I am so thankful for the lessons I've learned from anesthesia school, one of the hardest times of my life. And I'm so thankful that I had a husband and a support system that was willing to push me through to get me there. I tell you all of this to encourage you that you can overcome the hard times too. It's going to be hard and it's going to be discouraging and it's going to be intimidating at times. But I know if I can do it, anybody can do it. Thanks for being here, guys. Share this with someone that you know would love to go through anesthesia school, maybe is in anesthesia school, or just needs some encouragement to get through whatever hard situations they're going through. Don't forget to like this video, comment below, and subscribe to our page. Thanks for being here, guys.